everyone, this is David Ellis and I'm here with Dr. Amir Jahangiri, and today we're going to be doing something that's going to be controversial. Oh yes it is. Today is another tips and tricks show for the light workers and the left-hand path practitioners. Let me just pause a moment and let the crickets chirp. Did he just say what we thought he said? Yeah, I'm going to be giving tips and tricks to the light workers and the left-hand path practitioners. And there's a very good reason for this. And we will get into the discussion of the right and the left and the light and the dark. But before we do that, Amir, talk to these people.
Thank you, David. Ladies and gentlemen, my warmest welcomes to you. And I hope you're having a fantastic day. Thank you so much for being here with us. We really appreciate your presence. It's serving you that gives us energy. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We're going to be talking about some tips and tricks, this time focused on the ladies and gentlemen who are on the left-hand path, practitioners of the other side of esoterics. So I hope it's going to be valuable for everybody on the spiritual path, whichever polarity that you're working on. So David, let's just jump right into it.
Before we jump right in, we want to say thank you, guys. We are now on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, Apple, iTunes as a podcast. And we're really going to be putting a lot of effort out there to find interesting people to be introducing you to. And for those of you who have joined the community, you're already reaping the benefits. As we've seen, we've given you free courses and stuff like that. We're going to be having movie nights, games nights, and everything else in between. Okay, let's jump into this topic. When I made that announcement at the beginning of the show, a lot of people were like, did this man just say that he's giving tips and tricks to left-hand path practitioners? For those of you who don't know who left-hand path practitioners are, these are the practitioners of destructive magic. These are black magicians, etc. and so on. And I'm going to say, yes, I am actually going to do that. Would you like to know why? Because knowledge is a kind of power, and I'll explain what I mean by that to you. Most of you think that left-hand path practitioners are what you see in movies. They're like dark magicians. They wear black all the time. Incidentally, Amir and I are wearing black today, as in every other day. They wear black clothing. They probably wear cricket hats. They're usually very ugly. They don't like trim their nails, and
they've got long fangs, maybe missing teeth.
Yeah, and they think about taking over the world and killing people all day long. Nothing could be further from the truth. There are left-hand path practitioners who are your dentist. Yes, they go into your mouth. They may be your gynecologist. They may be your proctologist. There are left-hand path practitioners that are kindergarten school teachers. I know some of them because I know these people off the top of my head. Yeah. And then light workers are easy to spot. Now, David, why are you even saying anything positive about left-hand path practitioners? Because I'll tell you why. Left-hand path practitioners are called left-hand path practitioners because of the magic that they practice, not because of the mindset that they're in. Big difference. They are left-hand path practitioners that heal people. As I said, they may be your doctor, your dentist, your kindergarten school teacher. The magic that they practice is destructive magic. If you're into witchcraft, the magic that they practice is the magic of the waning moon. That's what it is. Now you're probably saying, well, if it's destructive, it shouldn't even be on air. It should see the light of day, etc., etc. And if you're saying those things, then you're a purist. And I would advise you to listen to us a little bit longer because we need to educate you, okay? The first thing I want to do in education, Amir, the light only knows the dark because it knows itself. And it only knows itself because it knows the dark. Similarly, the dark only knows itself because it knows the light. That is a statement of fact. And this is something you guys have got to understand. The only reason why you know you're a good person is because you've seen evil before. Does that make sense? Amir, chime in here.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, please consider that polarity is one of the properties of the physical world.
Correct.
Left or right, light or dark, positive, negative, up, down, right? As you ascend dimensions of existence, the lines get really, really fuzzy. As in, the politics are not so straight cut anymore. It's not that easy to just look at something, someone, or an idea and decide which location on the spectrum it actually lies on. So just to begin with, a lot of techniques in the left-hand path are very, very similar to techniques on the right-hand path. They're instruments, mechanisms, and operations leading to a desired outcome. They're an instrument, a tool. And so you can't blame the tool if it is misused or used in a bad way or a good way. It just performs its function. And in that way of looking at it, you should just evaluate the instrument on how efficient it is. How easy does it make the work? And that's really the definitive point of our species, tool making. And so then the more ascended beings would use more ascended instruments and ideas to get their will turned into something manifest. And really looking at both sides of the spectrum, when you have a discussion between masters in the left and right hand paths, very surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly at all, they agree on 90% of the things that they talk about. That, oh yes, such and such, this is dangerous, you shouldn't do it. You see both sides agree. Yep, this is dangerous, you shouldn't do it. Oh, by the way, this or this or this is a very, very good instrument of strengthening your energetic system. You see, yep, all sides agree. Yep, this we've tried, maybe in a different way, but yep, we agree this works. So really, it comes down to subtle philosophical differences, really. So, well, there's an idea of calling for assistance and support from allies. Well, the left-hand path practitioners may call fire elementals, the genie, also known as demons. By the way, the fire elementals, they really hate that name because of the negative effects, the negative meaning associated with it. But then the right-hand path workers, light workers, they call on the assistance and support from angelic beings. So they're both calling for support using entities and beings, using techniques that when you boil them down are essentially the same thing. So really, you got to be very careful not to judge people without sufficient knowledge. Just because somebody is on a certain path that is considered left-hand path, it does not mean that they are bad or evil. The same is true. A light worker, just because they're using a certain technique that's on the right-hand path, doesn't make them good. They do more damage in many cases. So please come in with an open mind, ladies and gentlemen. Let's discuss these ideas, scrutinize them. Hopefully out of this, we'll have a better understanding of what's going on.
Sure. So let's talk about an analogy. There is a gun on the table. We're going to call that gun magic. Okay? Somebody ascribes the label to themselves. I am a light worker. Picks up the gun and goes and hunts there with it. Okay? To feed the masses, as the case may be. A left-hand path practitioner picks up the gun, calls himself left-hand path practitioner, and shoots one person. Does that make the left-hand path practitioner evil and the person who is the light worker good? Nuances are important here, because if that right-handed practitioner, the light worker, picked up the gun and shot all the deer in a particular area, massacred them, then does that person still retain the title of, light worker? If the individual who picked up the gun and shot one person, the person's name is Mussolini, Hitler, I don't know, in order to save the lives of countless others, does that person still retain the title of left-hand path black magician? You see, nuances are important here, because Amir alluded to something which is very important. I've seen a lot of light workers do so much damage, it is not funny. With good intentions, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I think this dichotomy between the light versus the dark, and the dark is evil, and there are lots of evil people out there, it belies a certain amount of ignorance about human nature. Okay? Now, if you want to talk about the forces that cause, so the light worker says, I'm doing something good. That's the intent. Result is that no more dare live in that area. Left-hand path practitioner picks up the gun. I'm definitely doing something evil here. I'm going to kill the person who might kill a lot of my brothers or sisters and so on. His intent is evil. He knows that it is wrong. Which one of these two are the better? Am I giving you guys a brain seizure moment? Because you guys have to think about those things. Is there a brain seizure moment happening? Because here is the truth of the matter is, are we talking about intent or the result? Because in both results, they're negative. Not the same results on the same scale, however. So what are we doing here when we throw these labels around? The gun on the table is just a gun on the table. It's not a left-handed gun or a right-handed gun. It is the same energies that is being worked with. The intent that is put into it is a little bit different. Okay? And the results are obviously a little bit different. But then the intent does not necessarily guarantee that the results are correct. So.
Yes, absolutely, David. So there's a matter of intention, then there's a matter of outcome. So things are never quite clear cut. It's very difficult to know when a person, regardless of their modality and polarity, embarks on a process of manifestation, that it will all turn out the way they want, or that all outcomes and manifestations are desirable. And again, you see that a lot of these techniques can be used either way. So the same mechanism that can be used in powerful energetic healing can be used in powerful energetic damage by both sides.
Correct.
So one should be very careful not to judge. This judgment business is a dangerous, slippery slope.
It is. And it is exactly what, when you get onto this path, is exactly what you want to turn away from, because religion has some very clear cut, this is right and this is wrong. And even in that circumstance, I said this was a tips and tricks, so we're going to get into the tips and tricks in a while. And even in that instance, so let's say you're a Christian as an example. You are taught the devil and all his minions are evil and whatever. Then you go read the Bible. And then you have in the Old Testament a bunch of God's followers going from city to city, killing off anybody else who does not worship Jehovah, Yahweh, whatever. Okay? But in your mind, you know this to be wrong. In your heart of hearts, you know this to be wrong. If that person doesn't want to worship the God that I worship, I should leave that person alone. In the Old Testament, and people, listen, I've had a lot of philosophical debates. I did theology, so I've had those kinds of debates where people tell me, well, that's the Old Testament. We have a New Testament. In the New Testament, you were still killing people. You had people from the Inquisition killing people in the name of Christ because that person does not believe what you believe. Are you a left-hand path practitioner in that instance? Or are you still a light worker? Are you still a force of good? Are you still a force of good if you're enacting crusades in different areas of the world? Are you still that person? You see, these are the things that we tend to brush over in the spiritual realm. And this kind of polarity, this is black or this is white, should not be in the spiritual spectrum. This is a debate that should actually be discussed by reasonable people. Okay? But it doesn't happen. So I see people who are Christian who argue that the ends justify the means. Well, that's very Machiavellian. That's exactly what Prince Machiavelli said. Do you want to emulate Prince Machiavelli? Because he also said that might makes right. Would you like to emulate that? It's Prince Machiavelli of the light. Okay? These are the kinds of things that I want to discuss. So in that vein, we are going to offer tips and tricks to both sides of the spectrum on that vein, because I will not judge and I will not take sides on any topic. There are a whole bunch of people who are practicing voodoo, Santeria, and a whole bunch of different crafts. And they're doing it for good ends, and some people are doing it for very, very negative ends. You really think I'm going to judge the person's practice? Because, oh no, shamanism is more of the light than voodoo is. It's the same shamanism, different continent.
Yeah. So David, let's make a distinction right at the beginning that one should not judge an individual first based on the modality they practice.
Correct.
So you should, if you dare make judgment, because it's not our place to judge. But in that case, if you're making a judgment or evaluation upon somebody, you should do it on an individual basis. So we've got racism, we've got sexism. Let's call it what it is. Magicism, right? Based on what kind of magic you practice, you can't judge somebody. So let's look at voodoo. This is an ancient religion. How it came about is through honoring ancestors, knowledge of the natural world, healing, basically removing entities, parasitic entities from people, keeping the community safe, remote viewing, seeing events to come, and so on.
Sound familiar? It kind of sounds like shamanism, actually.
Shamanism. Wow, there we go. You see? So again, the instrument is the same. Maybe a certain culture makes a shovel one way, and 2 continents away, they make the same shovel with a little extra piece on it, right? The shovel is a shovel. So based on somebody, not everybody holding a shovel is out to bury a body. You can't make that, oh, you're holding a shovel, you got rope, okay, you're a serial killer. That's not good logic. So right now, let's just make this clear. Based on the type of practice and the name of practice, a lot of dogma has stuck to some practices throughout the age of Abrahamic religions. That if you are not with us, you are absolutely with the devil. And that whole notion of the devil, by the way, that's not something that's clearly based in fact. Left-hand practitioners most certainly know this, that there are entities that have similar qualities. But that devil thingy, well, we've got the Lucifer, the light bearer, angelic being, by the way. We've got a whole other host of kings of the fire elementals. But when you deal with them, that whole notion that, oh, blood is dripping from every orifice they have and they're out to cause destruction with no reason, you kind of come to know that, well, no, that's not exactly correct. Same thing when you deal with angelic beings. They're not all lovey-dovey with chubby cheeks that you can pull and hug and so on.
Even the cherub, oh my God.
Yeah, the cherub, they might be actually quite awful gangsters in point of fact. So please keep an open mind, don't judge, because the idea is to have correct information. Based on that correct information, then to come upon correct conclusions.
Yeah, and so with that, light workers, tips and tricks for light workers. Let's go. Tip number one. If you're a light worker, be a light worker. I'm sorry. That seems so. If you're a light worker, be a light worker. All right. You cannot divorce the title from the results that you create in the real world. If you're going to be a light worker, you need to spend some time. This is not easy. This is hard work. You need to spend some time cleaning your own closet out.
Oh, yes.
Before you start bringing light to other people, right? You need to spend some time cleaning your own closet. This is why I hate the title light worker. I hate that word because the majority of the light workers that I do meet, they have stuff that they need to clean out. That doesn't mean that they're not proficient at as healers or diviners or whatever the case may be. What it does mean, however, that when they meet a situation which triggers something that is internal to them, they are by far less effective. So as an example, a light worker who has been raped, and a former rapist comes to them and says, I would like to be healed. How is that going to work if you haven't dealt with what's inside? You would have had to have learned the Greek agape, that kind of unconditional love, in order to heal that individual. So this is why I have a real issue with this concept of light work in that sense. What the light worker really should do is refer that individual to someone else. Don't attempt it if you know that there's something in there that you are triggered by. So as a light worker, you shouldn't be necessarily prejudiced, racist, sexist, any of those things, because you're going to meet those triggers on a daily basis. And these triggers are going to be in front of you. And this is the way the universe works. It brings to you, if you say, I want to be healed, I want to be healed, the universe is going to find ways to heal you.
Yes.
They're going to find ways to clean you out. And that means coming face to face with the things that are inside of you on a regular basis.
So David, in this sense, both left and right, both polarities of magic and spirituality have this in common.
Yep.
That practitioners face this very real challenge of healing themselves in order to become more effective. That's in common for every practitioner. So just because somebody is a left-hand path practitioner doesn't mean they're exempt from healing. In fact, that's part of the focus and study in the left-hand path, with a lot more aggression, if I dare. There's quite a bit less of that lovey-dovey sense to things. You're thrown in the deep end. Heal, asshole. Because if you don't, you're not going to be strong. I apologize for being so harsh, but there's a very kind of militaristic way, no nonsense left or right about it. Heal, then you go to the next level. Because if you're not going to be able to handle yourself when you're faced with more intense energies. But this is also true for light workers. Hey, asshole, heal. Because guess what? Next client that comes is going to trigger the hell out of you. You're going to fall into the left-hand path and you're not ready to deal with it.
Correct.
So that healing, is part of every practitioner's journey. If you see somebody who's achieved a certain level of mastery, regardless of their polarity, left or right, and this is not a judgmental thing, we're just calling the common names of different practices. Everybody's gone through that journey of healing. And please believe me, it's never easy. It is always painful. You have to raise that pain out of the subconscious, face it, deal with it, honor it, integrate it, and then be done with it. That is very painful. But it's the pain you face for the last time, and then you progress. So yes, please, ladies and gentlemen, just know this. You have to be willing to accept hardship and sometimes things that are unpleasant in order to progress. There's not a sadistic nature to this. it is the necessity. Some harm and damage has been done to you in some level. In order to undo that damage, sometimes the procedure is uncomfortable. And that's just it. It is not out of malice or evil. So both polarities face this.
Yep. Which brings us to the second tip. The second tip for light workers is the development of agape. So I'm going to explain to you what that means. A lot of people in this world, the Greeks had a ladder of love, really. Like they had a hierarchy of love. So I'm going to explain this very simply for you. At the bottom of the ladder was a kind of love called eros. Eros is the love between man and woman, right? Boyfriend and girlfriend and so on. And it was considered the lowest form of love based on Greco-Roman standards because it came with a lot of conditionality. So as an example, for those of you who are dating, who are trying to find a partner and so on, you will notice that you have conditionalities, a lot of them. One of the conditionalities may be that that person must use Colgate. They can't use Crest. They can't use Crest. Because if they use Crest, that's an abomination. And everybody should use Colgate. And as a result of that, I cannot be with you, as an example. Some people are picky like that. That's why Eros is at the bottom of the ladder. Philios is the love of family and friends, so to speak, close family. So in that instance, there were less conditions, very, very little conditions. Yes, my brother's a bit of an asshole, but he's my brother because blood is thicker than water, is what is said. So there's less conditionality. Your brother may be a Crest user, but he's still my blood. And then there is agape, which is at the top of the ladder, which is unconditional love. And this unconditional love means that I don't care whether you're using Crest or Colgate. All are welcome into my heart as a practitioner of light. So I'm going to throw it out there because, you know, David and Amir are irritating like that. We're going to throw it out there. Hi, light workers, have you reached agape as yet? Don't worry, we'll wait for the answer. Have you reached there yet? I use Crest. Will you take me on as a client? Amir is a Colgate user. I guess he's a no-brainer to you, right? But I use Crest. Will you take me on as a client? Have you reached there yet? Have you seen this kind of love for everythingness inside yourself? Amir, what do you think? You think what is the percentage of light workers who have reached agape?
Well, David, exactly the same percentage that exists in the left-hand path. Because you see, agape is a universal concept.
Yes, it is.
You see, unconditional love may manifest in different ways. So it doesn't just mean doing things that on face value are good and positive. Sometimes it means taking the road less traveled.
Correct.
Doing the difficult thing, doing something that is immense and has challenging consequences.
Yeah.
So again, in the left-hand path, we have destruction rituals. And the name suggests what these are. But there are conditions to this, right? So a left-hand path practitioner becomes aware of an individual that is causing destruction upon the world. One of the philosophies of the left-hand path is enjoying beauty, enjoying nature, right? Having aesthetic refinement. Somebody just comes and destroys a beautiful garden where thousands of people would derive enjoyment and zen from. What do you do with that asshole? Destruction ritual. Okay, not everybody can do it, but is that an act of service? Again, with the example of Hitler and Mussolini and Stalin and so on. So they take it upon themselves with full knowledge of the consequences. Now, is that an act of agape? unconditional love for all. I'm going to do the dirty work, rid mankind of an influence that is destructive upon destructive.
Yeah, and that's when you get into the philosophical argument. Because, guys, the development of agape, let me give you a few exercises while we're at it. For those of you who want to develop agape within yourselves and you're like, there's no way, I'm not a people person. If you want to develop agape within yourselves, there is only one way to do it. And that is the path of the Buddha. Put yourself in the position of discomfort and go out there and meet everyone.
Yes.
Expose yourself to the people that you would rather not expose yourself to. See inside their minds and see what they are like. And then, then only then can you develop that love. This is exposure therapy on another level.
And David, if I may now add to what you just beautifully said, agape is unconditional love. So you think loving members of your own species is difficult? Well, wait till you face an elemental, fire elemental, that is completely alien in appearance, in energy, in mannerisms. You haven't reached agape if you cannot love that which is very different from you. And in fact, that's how many of the left-hand path practitioners truly become masters. They demonstrate this agape upon everyone and everything. Okay, a certain entity is ancient, far more ancient than mankind. In fact, they're the first residents of this beautiful Mother Earth.
Thank you, Amir. Thank you. I want to say a few things here. Symbolism is very important in every religion and every system on earth. Shiva has a snake around his neck because he has made the evils of the world his friend. The last words of Jesus the Christ on the cross was Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That would be agape in action. That's agape in action, Guys, have you reached there yet? Are you aiming towards that at all? Have you seen it? Have you seen this kind of stuff inside yourself? And I ask you this, and I say that I am trying to get there. I am trying to get there. The problem that a lot of people have is that they have no clue that this is a requirement of light working, that you actually try to open your heart and your mind to even things that you don't even like. Let me explain to you how people slip down the slippery slope of light working into dark stuff. I'll give you an analogy that is not personal to yourself. I will give you an analogy of a Christian who gets up in church and say, Satan is that evildoer. I hate Satan. I hate him with all my heart. I love Jesus. I hate Satan. But let me see if I get this straight. You're a student of the light, but you hating somebody. You hate Satan so much, right? Is he part of creation? Yes. You have very strong feelings of antipathy, of aggression, of whatever for a part of creation. What are you? Are you not a left-hand path practitioner? By your definition of that word.
And a bad one at that.
And a very bad one, because you have no control. Your hatred is running out of control. And if I was the devil, assuming that I was the devil, right, by now a whole bunch of y'all are saying, you're making me think too much, you are the devil. No, okay. If I was the devil, just so that we're clear, if I was the devil, I would make you guys hate me as much as I possibly can, just to elicit that energy out of you. So just to get you into my camp. Guys, you have to be very, very, very careful how you think in terms of stuff, because the universe is an organic creation, and you hating any part of it is like you hating that toe that is growing in the wrong direction. One of these days, that toe will fall off, and you will bleed out. Hate that too and hate yourself. So I really want to give you all that lesson in agape, because a lot of people don't think that deeply, and we're that kind of irritating team that makes people
Yes, indeed.
think.
So another thing that's, I think, very worth mentioning, that quality is always of primary importance,
Correct.
no matter what modality you're practicing. So in the left-hand path, similar to the right-hand path, quality is important. Self-control, mastery over your own energy, over your own thoughts and emotions, healing any kind of wounding that exists within your system, and striving towards improving yourself continuously, exhibiting manners, exhibiting honorable behavior, sticking to your word, not breaking vows. These are foundations upon which you become strong, whether it's working with angels and angelic beings and beings of 15th dimension or whatever, or whether it's working with elementals of nature, or let's say, for the lack of a better word, something that everybody understands, demons, right? These are beings also, some misguided, some forced into servitude, like a lot of mankind. Right? These beings do things sometimes out of free will. They are forced to. They are blackmailed to. But they very well understand compassion. They understand honor. They understand decency. They understand selflessness. They understand unconditional love. So whether you're left or right, you should be able to face a demon, heal it out of compassion, and provide it with the path to ascension. If you can do that, you can claim mastery. Same for an angel. Angel is acting out of whack. Same way you offer it healing, you offer it path towards ascension and correct moral and ethical behavior. Then you can call yourself a master. Left or right, these are physical, linguistic mumbo jumbo. They mean nothing. At the end of the day, we're all human beings on the path of ascension and mastery. If you do not refine yourself, you're no good to yourself and you're no good to anybody else.
I have a question to ask. You wake up in the middle of the night, as an example. There are two beings in your room. Both of these beings are hurt. They're hurt.
Yeah.
One of these beings is radiating light from within, has a cute little face on him, like little chubby cheeks and stuff like that. And then there's another being in the room. That being has a little pointy tail, has hair in places that really and truly does not look good. That being has body parts that are animalistic. Okay? So it might have like a cow's hoof or whatever else. And that being is also in pain and also hurt. Two beings are in your room. Let me ask you the question. You have the power to banish any one of these beings. Can you find it within your heart at this particular point in time to say to me, David, I would help both of these beings? The one that looks like Pan and the one that looks like the little cherub in your room? Or would you be biased? Would you be biased because of the look of that being and say, ooh, no, not dealing with that? Do you see how you give your energy away? Your bias from what the movies, Hollywood is the worst thing in the world, okay? Nothing in Hollywood when it comes to metaphysical movies resembles anything that actually happens in the metaphysical realm. Would you assist both of these creatures? Or would you banish one in favor of the other?
So David, that's a beautiful hypothetical question that you just raised. Now, what if it turns out that the being that is quote unquote ugly is actually that divine practitioner, highly ascended being that just looks ugly? And what if that beautiful creature is actually evil incarnate?
Yeah, the demiurge even.
Yes. You don't even know what's what. So the right thing to do is, like a battlefield medic, take a look at the wounds on both beings, then prioritize which one needs to be dealt with first, because if you don't, it may die.
You want to know
Heal that.
something? You
Yep.
want to know something very funny? The majority of the left-hand path practitioners I have met are very well kept. They're very distinguished looking,
Yeah. Oh, well,
right? Some of the darkest practitioners in the world
yeah,
are very well kept. They're very distinguished looking, and
absolutely.
they speak well. And this is basically what I'm saying to you guys. And some of the most ascended yogi masters are ascetics. They do not bathe.
Right.
They have tattered hair. But when
You
you
smell them.
speak to them,
Smell them before you see them.
smell
Oh,
them
the
before you
masters
do it.
in the
But
house.
when you speak to them and you sit down and you speak to them, the knowledge that comes out of their mouths is like, it has you like stunned, like, oh, I didn't expect that, right? And we all have those biases. And this is what I'm saying to you, especially when you get into the astral plane and the astral realm and so on. What appears to be is not actually what it is. And you guys have got to be like, you guys are going to be meditating. A lot of you, especially those of you who are in the UCM community, you guys are going to be meditating, and you're going to come into contact with the astral world at some point in time. And you know, you can't come into the astral world with the biases that you have out here from whatever Hollywood says to you. So now, revisiting the argument about left-hand and right-hand path practitioners, tip number 3. And that's the third tip for the light workers. Erase judgment. Tip number 1 was be of the light. Tip number 2 was heal yourself. That's what that means. Tip number 2 was develop agape. Tip number 3 is erase judgment. Okay? And once again, the only way you're going to erase judgment, exposure therapy. Go into the slums, go into places that you would normally go and put yourself there. You think a yogi back in India 2,000 years ago had a choice as to where he was going to go? He went everywhere. A sannyas walks everywhere. And you guys are going to have to do the same. Because there's a whole bunch of people out there. And I say this with all love in my heart, with regard to y'all. When I leave here and I see a beggar on the side of the streets, I have no issues touching that person. I have no issues touching that person, giving that person something to eat. How many of you would shy away from that? Ask yourself the question before you continue this broadcast, because this is going to get into deep water right now. We're going to the left-hand side of the spectrum. How many of you would shy away for fear of getting dirty, for fear of this man being a crazy man or whatever the case may be? Guys, when you are in the light, judgment is something that you should try to erase. You should try to erase it, okay? On both sides of the fence, because if you're going to run into left-hand path practitioners, that's just the way it works, because you know that whole opposites thing. Essentia and contra sua is the Latin expression for that. The essence of a thing is in its opposite. Yes. Essence of a thing is in its opposite. So you're going to run into people who are your opposite, and you're going to have to learn to deal with that, because when you see them, just like the Japanese samurai, I am not facing an enemy. I am facing myself and the things I don't like. So, Amara, I'm going to let you finish with the light workers, and we're going to go to this left-hand path deep into it. Thanks.
Well, you see, this is something that could be advisable to both sides of this polarity, fictitious polarity, I'm going to say. That if you want to become truly great, you should remove ego. And by removing it, I mean extending it to a degree where it encompasses everyone and everything.
Mm-hmm.
That you are an infinite being. By very definition, everyone and everything is part of you. The same thing that you just said, David.
Mm-hmm.
That means you face something that looks wonky, that looks abnormal, strange, maybe invoking fear. That's part of you. Doesn't matter if it's coming from Earth or not. You should be able to demonstrate noble behavior and that unconditional love towards it. Behave with dignity, honor, and wisdom. So removing that ego, by removing, I mean removing boundaries of ego, making that ego universal or cosmic. That's the path to mastery and power. Also remove illusions. Illusions such as I'm better, I am worse, I am this, I am that. No, 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 no. You're everyone and everything. Everyone and everything. A wounded being that comes to you is part of you. In another incarnation, perhaps. You are visiting yourself in an incarnation where you're the master healer. Okay? And so in the injured form, you're asking for help from yourself. You got to be a real special kind of a-hole to deny yourself help. So again, please remember this. Everything and everyone is part of you. You see somebody that doesn't agree with you, that's again an internal conflict. You see war upon the surface of the earth, that is internal conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Mastering the internal means you master everything.
Yeah. And so we move on to the left. So, my left-handed brothers and sisters, and I call you like my left-handed brothers and sisters because a lot of you would like to, some of you operate through the function of fear. Okay? And for those of you who operate on the function of fear, I say that you guys need development. Absolutely, you do. Because fear is not necessary when skill is entreated. And I say this in the best of ways because here's the thing, guys. If you are a left-handed practitioner, make sure that your intention is clear. I'm going to say something to you. Both light and dark workers, we're all going back to the same place in the end. Prime Creator created all of us. We're all going back to the same place. You're playing your part. We're playing our part. Somebody else is playing their part. Whatever the case may be, we're all going back to the same thing. So all this talk about good and evil is going to get reintegrated anyway. What are you talking about? There is no need for the hate anymore. There's only need for the skill and the intent. So let's say that you are a left-handed practitioner and you get your kicks out of striking fear into the hearts of people, either through your appearance with the black makeup and I don't know, like the fangs and filing your teeth and whatever the case may be that you guys are doing. Guys, yeah, that means that you're unskilled. That's what
Yeah, exactly. I mean, David, I haven't come across any left-hand path practitioners that are worth their salt that do that kind of crazy doo-doo. They look clean. They look absolutely classy, respectable. Right? So those with wonky stuff, they're filling for some sort of inadequacy.
Yes,
the real serious ones are professional. They look respectable. You look at them, you're going to admire their clean appearance, their dignified
they also have manners.
Oh yes, very, very, very much so.
Because they know what they're capable of, and as a result of that, they generally tend to give people else their manners. Yep. So
they're polite.
I knew a Japanese sword master once, and he had the greatest sense of peace around him. And I was wondering about this for a long, long time. Like, why do these Japanese martial artists have so much peace around them? It's because they know what they can do. That's why.
Yes.
Okay, that's why they have peace around them. So for those of you who like the black makeup and the filing your fingers to pointy little ends and the gothic look and so on. Guys, that does not make you a left-handed path practitioner. All that makes you is somebody that dresses up like a goth. You're listening to me. 1,000 black candles will not give you the skill level that you need just because you have a black leather jacket on. And incidentally, the reason why left-handed practitioners wear black, just so that we're clear, is for the lack of absorption of certain kinds of energies. And so if you're not wearing it for a particular purpose, guys, why?
Right.
You could be naked and be doing doing left-hand path stuff. And when we say left-handed path, we mean things that are on the scale of bringing things down, tearing things down, erasure, and stuff like that. This is what we mean. And not all the ends are negative ends, guys. Guys, once again, in the general scheme of things, all the pomp and circumstance, all the ostentatious displays of dark and macabre paraphernalia is not necessary if skill isn't treated. You are not different from a light worker. You are not different. Your methodology is different, but you essentially are not different. And at the end of it all this light and dark nonsense is useless. Y'all are the same. Y'all are the same. Y'all are the same. Y'all are going back to the same place. Y'all sprang from the same well, and y'all will return to the same well. Cut the nonsense out. So you think that there's this big battle between light and dark? No, the only battle is within the ends and the intent. And guys, I want to say this to you guys, if most of y'all are hitmen for other people, oh, I'm going to do some black magic for somebody else, that has repercussions. Y'all know it. It comes back to meet y'all, and y'all still do it. Dumb. That's dumb. Attacking innocent people, dumb. Attacking people who are defenseless, dumb. You think karma operates for us all, whether you're on the light or on the dark. And so you attacking innocent people, attacking people who cannot fight back, is an act of cowardice in and of itself. It is an act of cowardice. You attacking lower demons and so on and enslaving them and binding them, acts of cowardice.
Agreed. Absolutely. Because they may be just as defenseless as any human being. And in most of the cases, a lot of these practices are forcing the entity into servitude. So a true left-hand path practitioner will seek the liberation of that species the same way it seeks the liberation of mankind. So judgment is a very dangerous thing in these cases. You can't just judge somebody to be good or evil, not knowing what the hell is going on. Yep. That would be upon each individual, you see. A lot of these practices that are now called left-hand path are earth religions. Correct. Religions that are as old as mankind. Just judging them to be evil, full stop, is no better than racism or sexism. It's stupid.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Judging them by the era that they sprang from. Because I can pretty much tell you, if you told the Aztecs that bringing a human up to the top of a temple and plunging a stone dagger into the heart and ripping the heart out was an evil practice, they'd say, no, this is what we do. This is what we do. Right? But it's some dark stuff. It is some dark stuff. Granted. So the first tip I would have for left-hand path practitioners is drop the pomp and circumstance and do your craft, but do it with some level of honor and integrity, please. Which would bring us to the second tip for left-hand path practitioners. I don't know how to say this in a nice way. Actually, I can't say it in a nice way, so I suspect I'm just going to have to say it like it is. If you are a left-hand path practitioner, and you think that you want to actualize yourself as the most evil person on earth, why? You're an idiot. You are an idiot. The karmic load is enough. You think you're that skilled. Let me tell you what this looks like to you. Let me give you an analogy. I like to work by analogy. Trying to actualize yourself as the most evil person, that the most destructive person, is like taking a tennis racket, taking a tennis ball, hitting the ball across the court. And when the ball hits the other side and the universe sends it back, it's fragmented into a million different balls coming at you at the same time. You're not that skilled. You're not that skilled. And when you decide that you're going to actualize yourself by doing harmful deeds to innocent people and so on like that, all it means is that you're attacking your own self. We said that in the light worker section. So establish that the ends that you are trying to get at has some sort of benefit to somebody other than your one client or yourself. And that's how you balance karma. If you intend that this is destructive magic is what you bend more towards. No judgment. This show is not about judgment, but this is about advice. So tips and tricks. Balance. Balance is very important for a left-handed path practitioner. If it is that you're doing magic specifically to alter some outcome, as an example, that outcome has to benefit more than just yourself or your one client. It has to benefit the universe. It has to be within universal law. And in that sense, your left-hand path is the magic that you're doing, not necessarily you as an individual. But some of you all take yourselves way too seriously. You want to be the greatest dark magician that there is. And so in that, you sacrifice your sense of honor to be that thing, to have that title. Look, I changed this and I changed that and I bent this universal law. You can't break universal law. You'll bend them and they will snap right back to where they were before. You think you could do magic that the prime creator has not seen? Everything is preordained. And here's what? It's going to come back. So you could bend universal rules, but please do it for a good end and know that it will snap back into a straight line as soon as you're done with it. So, guys, part 2 is balance. The second tip is balance. Balance the outcomes. All right? Because just because you're a left-hand path practitioner doesn't absolve you from karma. Karma will come out and find you. I'm going to let you chime in on that, on that second point.
So, esteemed ladies and gentlemen, on the left-hand path, you may have read this, that there is no good and evil. There are just choices and their consequences. So this is a description of karma built into the teachings of the left-hand path. There are always consequences. So in philosophical terms, having been risen above that good and evil ideology, you still have to be very careful of the repercussions of what you set into motion. So if you're dropping a pebble into a calm surface of a lake, there are going to be waves radiating out. You're creating a storm, but you're always in the center of that storm. There's no way around it. You're the point of reference. You're the starting point. So be aware of what you are setting into motion. Mm-hmm. As practitioners of the left-hand path, you have to pay very, very close attention to behaving righteously. I'm not talking about good or evil. If you're causing any kind of change, it has to be for the right reasons, and you should know this within every layer of your being. Keep yourself healthy and clean. Avoid using substances, right? Alcohol and drugs. Keep it clean.
That was actually the third point. Yep.
There we go. So I jumped a little bit ahead. So let's just put 2 and 3 into a continuous spectrum. Take care of your body and your energy. because of the nature of your practice, you're exposed to a lot more temptation. You must safeguard yourself. Okay? So keeping it clean, acting with honor, with manners, with dignity, with righteousness, having discipline. You see, just because you're on the left-hand path doesn't mean anything goes. No, no, no. Things go out of control. They spiral into a whirlwind of destruction. You'll be down on your butt in the mud before you know it. If you want to sustain yourself, you have to practice thinking clearly. Do things in a way that makes logical sense to make it sustainable. Make yourself strong, keep yourself clean, keep your body clean.
Which should bring us to, the third point. And as you said, let's make it on a spectrum, because there's a brand of left-hand path practitioners who think that they can derive power by debasement. Oh no, not a good idea. Debasement, and you know who you guys are. Y'all worship lower beings that seem to convince y'all that debasing yourself, not bathing, not eating, not debasing yourselves, taking yourself down to the lowest entity, eating roaches, all that sort of stuff, eating gross stuff, the most intense debasement is a good idea. You will gain power. You will. But that's going to be temporary because your body won't sustain it for very long and you will die. You will die.
You got to be careful with this kind of thing. So the only successful example I know of are currently the Agori. If
Correct.
you want to go down that path, please do yourself a favor. Let go of all your worldly belongings. Say goodbye to your friends and family. Travel to India. Go to a graveyard and find yourself a master. Do it the proper way. Because even within that type of practice, there are many secrets not bestowed upon the public. So as David said, trying to imitate these masters, you'll end up killing yourself.
For sure. There's some of you who believe that debasement is the way to power. And I will advise you that is the way to death.
Yes.
So if you guys are listening to this right now and you know that you all are practitioners of that kind of magic and those kinds of paths, and you are not being mentored in any way, give it up now. Give it up now. Hear what is being said to you. Give it up now. Whatever little strides you have made is not worth your shortened life. And death is coming for you. That is for sure. And you're going to say, well, I'll just come back stronger. No, you won't. You will start back where you started from. That is the greatest lie ever. So, debasement, not on. It's not a good idea. Overall, I can say for both light and dark practitioners, in terms of the tips and tricks, self-care is absolutely up there. You guys have got to take care of yourself, eat properly, meditate, and be at peace to a certain extent with yourself, which is not something that people usually associate with left-hand practitioners, but they are very much at peace with themselves. Just like the Japanese samurai person who knows with a strike of a sword, his enemies are no more. They are at peace from different points of view. The light worker is at peace because the light worker has ceased prejudice and is in agape. The left-hand path practitioner is at peace because he understands his power in this world and outside this world. And he no longer cares about the little things in life, like you chattering to him, as an example. You are chattering at him. And so there's no judgment either which way. We just wanted to do this tips and tricks video. We've come to the end of our session today, so that both sides of the fence are tended to in terms of the tips and tricks. So some of you would still judge us because guess what? Did you just give tips and tricks to left-handed path practice? Yes, we did. Yeah, we did. Yep, I got friends who are in the left-hand path. I got friends who are light workers. I got friends who are witches. I got friends who are shamans. I got friends who are like all different kinds of things, into voodoo, Santeria, and so on. And there is no judgment, nowhere, no how, and they never will be. Guys, that is my spiel today. Amer, you have the last word as usual.
Thank you so much, David. Ladies and gentlemen, regardless of what spiritual modality you are practicing, the objective should be ascension of yourself, refinement of yourself, a growth that goes beyond a single incarnation. And so towards that end, you should have discipline. You should behave with honor, with righteousness. Now, maybe there's difference in your philosophy with other people, but you always know what is correct to do. Do the right thing. Don't overstep boundaries. And please be aware that we're living in a living, intelligent cosmos, and there are fundamental rules that cannot be broken. Know that your acts of manifestation and exertion of will fall within these fundamental rules of the universe. So don't go trying breaking the law of gravity. You're just going to damage yourself. If you jump off a building, you're going to come down just the same way as a stone, right? Be aware of these laws. Don't try to bypass them. Act righteously and preserve yourself. One final thing. Everybody should look nice and clean and respectable. Don't try to do the shock and awe thing unless you're really a goth and you like doing it. But that doesn't have anything to do with magic.
Thank you. Oh, before we go away, Amer Jahangiri has decided to come out and he is teaching a course on the Kujikiri. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's sort of a 9 gates to spiritual and magical power. He's teaching the Kujikiri as the magical system. And so for those of you who haven't gotten the link, we're going to be putting the link in the description below. It's quite affordable. It's like $200. And honestly, that course usually will go for thousands of dollars, but we are different. We're doing something different with regard to this community. We're making things accessible. So guys, come out and sign up if you do, whether you want to learn this stuff or not. I guarantee you won't find a better magic teacher, not in this side of the world anyway. So please sign up and take care. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.